major appliances are on sale. Everything must go. Even the store fixtures are for sale. Only in the Sears store in Wasilla at 1000 South Seward Meridian Road. It's business as usual at all other Sears stores.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 35 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to roll into the year 1993. But before we do that, make sure to head on over to the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Listen to the old archives, get your listening links, and subscribe to your favorite podcast player. Make sure to give us that 5-star rating. But
coming
Mark,
off victories in their previous 8 games.
1993, you went streaking that
for
year.
The visiting team.
Let's talk about
Hello, everyone. I'm Dwight Kuiper along with Mike Krukow for EA Sports MVP Baseball.
91
and now here's
and
tonight's
92.
Starting pitcher, Pedro Martinez.
You can hear some increasing frustration.
This matchup features the
by
Toronto Blue
really
Jays
all of us.
and the Boston Red Sox.
With the 6 car. And I've had certainly some increasing frustrations with several different aspects. We peaked in 1990 in our performance.
Starts the game.
And going forward from 90, 91, and 92, we were continue to be extremely consistent, but we weren't quite as competitive, on the racetrack as we wanted. We're super competitive, but not winning races, I would say. Super consistent, and, but not as fast as we really wanted to be. 91, 92 after 1990. And so that was building a little bit of frustration for us in that standpoint. And of course, you've heard me mention that some of my, a little bit about my relationship with Jack. We going into 93, I did not feel like Jack trusted me to be. I didn't feel like he knew me to the core, and I didn't feel like he trusted me, to the core, and, sort of, he and Jeff Smith, who Jeff was really who I was beginning to deal with, had begun to deal with on contracts and a lot of things like that. He was president of Roush Racing, and so and Jeff was an attorney, and he worked in good faith. He worked. I didn't use an attorney on my contracts. I used him. I used him to do the things when I would get a contract from him. I'd read the contract and tell him what what I was concerned about, what I didn't like, or whatever. And we would work through those things, and therefore we wouldn't have any issues when it came to Jack and I. It was a good setup, a good situation. Even though, I still wasn't being paid anywhere near market value or treated or valued. I didn't feel like, my market value was. It was a good arrangement. I never had any problems with Jeff. Jeff was a good, smooth guy. He did a great job of selling his point. From a race team standpoint of where we were. And so, that being said, we 92 and 91 had not been a particularly satisfying performance season for me, and the pressure was building on me. All my buddies were, had good-looking deals that were better deals than what I felt like my deal was. And
the pitch.
You know,
There's a roller to the left side.
I respected Robin Pemberton's job and Steve Mills' job. I was honored to work with such smart, brilliant people and such good people. But at the same time, no one likes to be told what to do. So, you know, I was adjusting to being out of control of my, you know, a 100% control of, you know, the definition of what my cars would be. You know, I had a lot of input, all the input really that I wanted, but it was a different time in my career where I wasn't the guy telling, you know, people how to hang the bodies and where to do this and that. Steve and I still sit down and talked about what setup we were going to go to with every racetrack, and I had you know, 100% input on what springs and shocks and bars, and that all worked fine. But when it came to the working of the shop, it wasn't my, you know, I wasn't because I wasn't there every day. It wouldn't have been a good thing for me to be the boss of things. If you know what I'm saying. You know, I'm starting to do, you know, more press, more media stuff, more commercial stuff, more appearances and all those kinds of things, and it was pulling me away. And it was Steve and Robin's job to define, you know, what the cars really were, and I was having to adjust to that, and it wasn't a comfortable adjustment, and we weren't running as good as we wanted to be, so, you know, that was a negative force on it. And I'm saying all this because I feel like that an important factor that most people don't know about what we went through in '93 before later in the season having a very triumphant run was that we went to Sonoma, which was always, you know, May, June-ish, and I had just had it. I was just frustrated out of my mind, and Jack and I went to dinner, and I finally got the balls up to tell Jack that I didn't want to drive for him anymore.
Sometimes you try to make a hitter chase your
and of course I had a contract that went 3 more years, which like I said before, I never got closer than 2.5 years to an end of a contract, and that was smart business on Jack and Jeff Smith's side, very smart. And it was also that was on me because I always wanted to take the fresh deal that sweetened the pot. I was always, you know, willing to sign up for that. Well, it always seemed like it always came after we were on a nice little roll. We won races. Been running good too. So anyway, I got the balls finally.
And a fastball.
Tell Jack I didn't want to be there anymore.
He's got one real good pitch.
And he's like, why? And I told him, you know, because I can't. You know, because I can't get the bodies on my cars like I want to. And he's like, well, why? And I said, because, you know, the guys in the shop say that you can't do it. You can't lower the roofs on these cars. We were running the roof height. They had a quarter panel height rule of 35 and 36 across the back, 35 left rear, 36 right rear. And the roof height minimum was 50.5 inches. Well, we were running our cars at 51.5, 51 3/8, maybe every once in a while 51 1/4. And we were doing that so that you could close the hood, you could put a motor in it with a carburetor on it, with a carburetor spacer on it, and close the hood. And I think that Robin and Steve both assumed that you couldn't go to Jack, the engine guy, and tell him, hey, we want to take the carburetor spacer off your motor. And you can't lower the motor because they're already at, 10.5 or less. Of course, my guys were fantastic, trying to get the engine through, lower than 10 inches, which was the rule and all that. But anyway, we couldn't do it. And like if it would have been my shop in a backyard garage, I would have hung the body max out. 50.5 roof height, 35, 36, and that some bitch had been raked out of its mind. And then when I got the body hung on it, I would have slid a motor in it, and I would have figured out a way. I wouldn't have given a damn what it took. Well, no one imagined that Jack would have been the same way. We didn't know Jack still. We've been, what are we in our 5th season together? And Jack's like, well, the engine is secondary. And of course, the engine was primary to Jack all the time, it seemed like, because that's what his love was engines, and always had been. But we had misjudged that. And he's like, no, we're gonna do that. And so we ran a race at Sonoma. And Tuesday, after Sonoma, every Tuesday, Jack came from Michigan down to the shop. And every Tuesday, and we're going to tell the team what's going to go down. So we get up there, and Jack tells them that, they hadn't been doing enough, and that, we're going to do these bodies like Mark says he wants them, and this is all about Mark, and you guys have worked harder for him in 1987 when you used to go over there at night and work on his stuff than you are right now, which was pretty rough for those guys to take. But to be real honest with you, the race team, we'd all gotten comfortable.
That's one of the toughest balls in baseball judge.
Comfortable meaning, not working nights, late nights, regularly, and the kinds of things that you had to do back then to win races. Back then, you just had to do that. And it was true. In 1987, many of those guys that worked there would come by my old shop there in Randleman at night and volunteer help, because there was only 2 or 3 of us running a full bush schedule, and yet they weren't staying at night ever to cut these bodies off and drop them down. So it was, everybody was pissed. The whole shop was pissed. Now, I'm sure they were pissed at me. I'm sure they were pissed at Jack. No one ever, at this point, really understood Jack. We're five years in. The guy was hard to get to know, and was a little bit cold, and we were all scared of him. And as we go on forward in these podcasts, you'll learn that Jack becomes a very warm person, very caring person,
That was a great example of the defense
caring to a fault, and loyal to a fault, meaning you could be doing a hell of a terrible job, and Jack would stay with you way, 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 way too long because he was loyal like that. But we weren't to that point yet in 93. So the guys started cutting bodies off of race cars and hanging them at 50 and 5/8 and taking the carburetor spacers off so that the hood would close on the motor. And so we go to Watkins Glen. Of course, we've got our new body location on the car, and Steve had. Steve and the guys had built they had taken a road race car that we had and really lightened it up. And they cut a bunch of structural stiffness out of the car as well, just cut tubing out of it. And it was a plexi flyer. I remember that the hood wouldn't close on the hood pins wouldn't very well when the car was jacked up on jack stands. You know, it was built to sit on the weight on the ground, and I guess it must flex when it was raised up on jack stands or something, and the hood pins kind of moved or something. So yeah, it was amazing freaking car. This thing was so stupid fast in practice. It was unbelievable. And then but you know, we didn't really know how fast we really were until we rolled it out to qualify. And we absolutely murdered the track record and the competition. It was unbelievable how fast we ran. So that was amazing race for us. You know, we went to the back of the pack. I can't tell you how many times. It seemed like we rounded. Robin was changing the rear tires, and he had a lug nut round off on one of the rear tires. I'm thinking it was the right rear, but I can't remember for sure. And it rounded off, and he couldn't get it off. And we pitted, and we pitted, and we pitted, and we'd make our way back up. And you know, for a while, I don't think he changed the right rear tire on multiple stops, or whichever tire it was.
Sears announces the Wasilla store is closing forever. Millions in inventory must be sold, including all fashion clothing, tools, bed and bath, housewares, sporting goods, and more. Save 70% off on all fine gold, silver, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. Gifts for all occasions. All in-store, in-stock major appliances are on sale. Everything must go. Even the store fixtures are for sale. Only in the Sears store in Wasilla at 1000 South Seward Meridian Road. It's business as usual at all other Sears stores. Sears announces the Wasilla store is closing forever. Millions in inventory must be sold, including all fashion clothing, tools, bed and bath, housewares, sporting goods, and more. Save 70% off on all fine gold, silver, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. Gifts for all occasions. All in-store, in-stock major appliances are on sale. Everything must go. Even the store fixtures are for sale. Only in the Sears store in Wasilla at 1000 South Seward Meridian Road. It's business as usual at all other Sears stores.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase
whichever rear tire it was. But eventually, at the end, we made our way from the back up to third, and I could see Earnhardt and Kyle Petty, and we were catching them. I mean, we were mowing them down like you wouldn't believe, but the race was about over. And Earnhardt and Kyle tangled up in front of me and took them out. We went on to win that race. So we had some horrible bad luck, but we had a little bit of good luck there as well. And then we just kept on mowing, man. We went to Michigan with this car, with this, you know, with the body on it, and you know, that thing, it was unbelievable. We were unbelievable fast there as well. I remember getting behind cars on the straightaway and having the car buff it and pick up major speed, more than we were used to seeing, because we were used to a lower drag, lower downforce body, and this thing was significantly more drag and more downforce. On a 2-mile racetrack, some people didn't think that you could make that work, but it's all, you know, I mean, Michigan is all about the corners, man. You're in the corner forever, and we knew that. I knew that. I knew that the only place that you had to take drag over downforce in consideration was Daytona and Talladega, with, you know, the restrictor plate choking the thing down to 400 horsepower on a 2.5-mile racetrack. So anyway, we smoked them there, went on to Bristol, and you know, same thing, just really incredible team effort. Man, we were rolling on a roll, riding a wave. We won Bristol, and then we went to Darlington for the Southern 500, and had a great race there as well, and won that one. That made it 4 in a row. And I remember, you know, I mean, just it was like everybody was standing with their mouth open looking, couldn't believe, you know, that we'd strung this this string together, and got in the car to drive home with Arlene. And I remember feeling, it all felt kind of surreal, like it really hadn't happened, because it had come at a time, and I think you could go back and look at the records, but if I'm not mistaken, I had won 2 Busch races and an IROC race in this spring. So I think at this point we had won like the last 7 races that I buckled up in a row, all within 4 weeks. It was a crazy roll that we were on, and we went to Richmond, and halfway through that race, we were leading the race so easy that I couldn't even see second place. And I knew I was going to get in trouble for, dominating that bad. So I'm out there leading the race, running half throttle. And this is the truth. Half throttle all the way down the straightaways. We were so good. And couldn't even see second place. So it looked like we were going to make it 5 in a row. And as the race started to wind down, in the night race, and the track started changing, I couldn't feel the change in my car that much, but we went from being, that fast to, I think, finishing 5th or something like that. So it seemed like the competition got a whole lot better, later on in the race, and we didn't really have a glaring problem, and it didn't really seem like maybe we need to be freed up. I don't know, but anyway, we didn't pull it off, but still a great showing, and just really a great year. And then of course the next to last race of the season is Phoenix, and that's where 3 years back we had essentially lost our championship by losing those points and not running well there, finishing 10th. And we go there, and it seems like, if I remember correctly, we either sat on the pole or were second. I remember Trickle was on the front row with us, and it seemed like Trickle got the lead at the start, but I got right by him. We had a hell of a race, and it seems like I had one hell of a race with Ernie Irvin, if this is the race that I'm thinking. But we won that race as well, and what's significant about winning that race is, so back in the summer we start rehanging these bodies, and so we need us a car for Phoenix, and we had retired JR10. JR10 was the first Laughlin car that we built. And if you go back to 1989, I talk about that. In 1989, I get my first Cup win with JR10 front steer car. Well, we had retired this thing because the guys are building new race cars all the time and building them better and better. And so we had retired JR10, which had won multiple races for us. I don't know exactly how many, but of the 35 I won with Roush, I'm going to guess we won five or so times with JR10. So anyway, we pull out JR10. The guys do. They pull it out of the back of the shop where it's parked and retired. Cut the body off of it and hang a body on it to go to Phoenix with. And so that thing won again. JR10 did at Phoenix. So yeah, it was that was an amazing car, and that car sits in the museum in Batesville at the Ford dealership on display. It was. I would like to know. I wish Steve Neal or someone could figure out how many exactly how many times we won with that car, but that was the second time we had brought that chassis out of retirement and won with it, if I recall correctly. So that was one of those cars we just couldn't get rid of, but it did eventually wind up in the museum. So it was amazing second half of the season for us, for sure.
That's baseball. Sometimes things
not only was it amazing second half in the Cup side. Now I did go back and look at the the Busch side at that time with the Winn-Dixie car, but you had 5 in a row in the Busch series. Michigan, Darlington, Richmond, Charlotte, Rockingham, all around that same time.
Oh yeah, we were rolling. We had that Winn-Dixie car, humming at full song for sure. It was that program was really on track. But everything I touched at this time was really unbelievable. If you'll look up the IROC 1993 IROC stats, I would be surprised if I didn't win the championship in IROC this year. And every time, I would win when you had to practice the IROC car or you had to start last. One or the other. And you also, high points started last every race. And so I was typically always first 2 or 3 in points, so I always started in the back anyway. So sometimes I wouldn't practice, or sometimes I'd go over and make 2 laps before, in one of the practice cars, just to satisfy them, because they were all wigged out that I wouldn't practice. I didn't need to practice, it was just everything I strapped in was just golden right now. This was the golden time of my career. I had struggled and fought and scratched and clawed all those years through that pain and agony through 1982 to 93, and it really didn't turn magic until halfway through 93. Although I had lots of great times, and 1990 was a great time. But we did what we did in 1990 partially based on consistency rather than dominance. We put some ass whippings on them in 93, and pretty much everything I strapped in, we were laying it down. So it was incredible.
What's it like to go to a track every week when you know you're that fast? Is the pressure building as the wins pile up, as you go to these different tracks?
Not really. It's just really cool because, all your competition is timing you. We didn't have live timing and scoring back then, so crew chiefs and they would be timing who they thought the guy was to be, them and the crew guys and stuff, and all eyes would be on us, of course, and Earnhardt, and of course Rusty and whoever, but we were typically one of the ones that everybody kept tabs on, because I was an incredible qualifier. That was always one of my strong suits. We could pull laps out of a hat, like even when we weren't running good, we could pull a rabbit out of the hat for qualifying a lot of times. Qualifying was something that I really, really, really enjoyed doing. I loved it. I loved the intensity. I loved the anxiety of it. I loved rolling out onto the racetrack and pushing the car to the point where I didn't really know if I was going to make it or not. Didn't really know if I was going to wreck it or not. And pull off something that was just beyond your expectations or anyone's expectations. That was just that was a thrill for me. I really liked qualifying, and I thrived at it, and really had that was really good. That was really good for me.
The infielders have to be thinking ground ball to the left side, look the runner back on the first.
So at that time in the
right
early 90s, NASCAR was taking off, blowing up on at the track.
Walk number 3 given up in the ball game.
Tell us about when NASCAR was really in its glory days.
Yeah, we're really one of the top, certainly top 5 drivers on the circuit in every respect. In competition, on-track performance, souvenir sales went insane during this period. Endorsement deals started to come.
Here it comes.
Jack and Jeff Smith began to let me do a little bit more endorsement deals, although they were always very restrictive. But that was another thing. Like, and I was no Earnhardt, but Earnhardt, he got
that defense at double play depth. If you can get a ground ball right here,
I don't know. I thought he got, probably didn't, but I thought he got like all the royalties, off of his souvenir sales. Man, at Roush Racing, there again, I got beat up. I got 4/9, a little over 2/3, or a little over 1/3 of the souvenir royalty money. So that was always kind of a rub, but it still was a huge amount of money, even at that. Valvoline got a piece of it, Ford got a piece of it, and of course Roush got a large piece of it, and I got a piece of it. But the souvenir royalty thing was insane during that time, and then mid to late 90s, it was unbelievable. You could make as much money from that as you could driving a race car, just about. But this is the beginning of the glory years of NASCAR, or the golden age, where it went from grassroots racing, where Richard Petty and Bobby Allison and Cale Yarborough, David Pearson were racing in a southeastern sort of regional racing thing, good old grassroots racing, to certainly the golden age of commercialism. During this time in the mid 90s to the mid 2000s, that was an era when people could make some money in racing. Drivers, crew chiefs, good tire changers, and that kind of thing. The money was the sponsorship, the endorsement deals. The sponsorships were coming into the race teams. They were growing leaps and bounds, and the race teams in turn were spending money like crazy. And it really transformed the sport because they had so much more money to put toward being competitive. I mean, I remember 1989, I think it was, Rusty, it was for the season of 1989, it was the end of 1988, Rusty bragging to me, yeah, man, my sponsor next year, $1 million. So Rusty's sponsorship for 1989 for the full season was $1 million, and they won the championship on that. And now you can't run two races. You run a couple races on that, So, things have really, really changed. But that's how much it changed. 1989, the sponsorship for Rusty's championship run was $1 million from Kodiak.
That'll wrap up episode number 35 of the Mark Martin Podcast, year 1993. Again, hit the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Make sure to subscribe and give us that 5-star rating.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.
Inside.
Charles Jr. unleashes the monster. It's not like anything you've ever seen before. It's bigger, beefier, baconier, and cheesier. With 2 1/3-pound Angus beef patties, 4 strips of crispy bacon, and triple cheese, the only way to stop it is to eat it. Get ready to face the new Monster Angus Thick Burger from Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. Limited time only at participating Carl's Jr. restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 34 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to roll into the year 1991. But before we do that, again, head on over to markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Make sure to get all of the old archives, the listen links to your favorite podcast player. Make sure to hit subscribe and give us that 5-star rating. But Mark, we're going to roll into 1991, the second year of the Folgers Cup.
Yeah, so in 91, it starts off with a real bang. January, Matt's born. Really fortunate with the timing. It worked out perfectly. I was able to be there to see my son born, and so we started off the season really well. It's probably the highlight of my life. Meeting and out of the zone, that's a ball. And snagging Arlene was probably second only to the experience of being a father, and all the times I got to have with Matt. So we get the season started off with, after the crushing blow of the 26-point loss of the championship in 90 in a 46-point penalty that would have put us 20 to the good. But I figured they'll come, no problem. All right, everybody, and time for the 7th inning stretch. We go to Daytona, and we have our typical Daytona. We qualify 18, finish 21st. We had trouble like we always do at Daytona. Nothing ever went right for me at Daytona, it seemed like, during those years. I called it the world center of pain. They called it the world center of racing. And to me, it was the world center of pain. It never did. It was always a pain in my ass. But, we kick off the season there pretty competitive and doing pretty well. We're pretty fast qualifying. We wind up winning quite a few poles, but we fall short of winning. We run second, third, and fourth a lot, fifth. We don't get any wins all season, and we have quite a bit of problems. Where we finish 20th or worse with reliability issues and whatnot. So, we don't score as many points throughout the year. And we finally get to the final race of the season, and I remember this part very, very well because it's Atlanta, and I loved Atlanta. It was the old Atlanta still, and I loved Atlanta. High bank, 1.5 mile, oval, wore-out pavement, multiple banking angles. It was so much fun. We had a great day. We hauled ass and we won that race. So we finally got our win for the season in the final race of the season. But throughout the year we ran pretty good. We probably had some of our competition get a little bit ahead of us, begin to get a little ahead of us on the aero. From the downforce status. I would assume that would have been, a little tiny bit of it. But we also, we ran good, but we definitely had, this was a year that we had mechanical failures, a lot of engine trouble, and a lot of other issues that kind of set us back. We had some really strong runs, but it wasn't a banner season for me. it wasn't bad. Steve and Robin and I and my guys, we're as tight. We're really tight. I mean, we're really clicking. We're really getting comfortable. We're putting it down, at the racetrack pretty strong. And, we're just one little tiny click off of being where we need to be. So, we continue to work on all those aspects, especially the one part that Steve and Robin and I could really
the Blue Jays have
control. So we had no control over the engines, horsepower or reliability. We didn't really have any say in, hardly no say at all in what Jack did in that area. So the only thing that we really had that we could make a huge difference in was the handling of the cars. And so, we stayed focused on that. Stayed focused on trying to make the cars go through the corners fast and faster and faster. And we stayed focused on that. And that had been the way it had been most of my career. I'd always, even when I raced ASA, I mean, your motor's what you had, and that was it. Whatever it was what it was, horsepower underneath the hood. I never gave that a second thought, or never put any thought into how I could,
the purpose of this visit is to
get more power into it. All I focused on, because I knew it would make the difference in winning or losing, was the handling. And so that had been, my strong suit.
Bringing in the righty right here is a good move, because right-handed hitters
and working with these guys was, like I've said in my earlier podcasts, I was really living a dream. It was such an honor for me to work with such smart people and have them support me. Guys that I really respected and looked up to, that had worked at the Petties, and for example, they had worked at the Petties, and the first time I think I knew them or saw them and everything, they were in a STP uniform. So to me, it was an honor to get a chance to work with them.
So that season, 1991, do you feel like they're, going into that season, there was...
This guy here is dangerous in the batter's box.
The shadow over the team, did that have any repercussions on the team as you guys got the season going and going through the season? I mean, did it have that kind of impression on the team as you went through? And then, to go to Atlanta, the very last race of the season, and finally pull off a win. I mean, did that
1 ball, 2 strikes?
At that point, was that a breath of fresh air for the whole year?
Yeah, that was a huge relief. It really felt good to be able to savor that throughout the entire winter. And it gave us a good feeling about our season and everything. And also, one of the other things was we always, so Atlanta was on Sunday, the last race of the season. Then Monday and Tuesday, we would go to Road Atlanta and take quite a few cars, my teammates' cars. We put 2 seats in them all, and Jack would bring the road race drivers and road race cars as well. And so they, we would give rides to the media, to sponsors, and the sponsors' guests, and all those different things. We give rides, high-speed rides around Road Atlanta. And I'm talking about, we'd get out there with each other and wind up racing each other. And, sometimes we've been known to turn one another around out there on the racetrack with passengers in the cars. So to go to Road Atlanta on Monday and Tuesday after Atlanta and the whole season, and you feel like the whole rest of the NASCAR world is beginning their vacation and you're still grinding, doing this thing that's really good for us and for our sponsors and everything. But, it was kind of a bummer, because you were really ready to finally have a few days off, and you weren't off yet. So to go to Road Atlanta with
grounded to third.
With a win,
third out, we go to the bottom of the inning.
And with that trophy, felt really good. Made us feel better. And, we're around the media because they're there. We're giving rides and sponsors and sponsor reps and sponsors guests and all those different things. We have we did have a lot of fun there, and there was paint traded, and there were cars wrecked. Yeah, poor Jack. It wound up being pretty expensive. You can imagine how many sets of tires we ran through, and then pretty much wound up wrecking a race car about every year there for a few years.
Hit towards the shortstop.
And we had some big time. Looking back on it, we had more fun than we felt like we were having at the time. It felt like work, but I sure remember going there, being out there Monday morning after winning the final race of the season and feeling good about things, and with our sights set on the next year and improving and contending for the championship again. We had expected the championship would come. There was no doubt in our minds after 1990 that a championship would come. And that was the one thing that was really, that was still missing. Winning races was always king for me in this era.
Up the middle,
but you had to win a championship to be.
He's on with a single.
Be considered. That was winning races was really big. A really big deal, but to win a championship meant even more, and it meant more to your sponsors, and it meant more to Jack Roush.
Swings and lifts,
it meant more to a lot of people. So, it took on its own life with me.
With one man left
like
stranded.
I wanted to do it because it was a challenge.
One inning left to play, the score
but as long as I was
10-5.
winning races, I was beyond the point of 1992, but not 1982 when my career collapsed and I failed. And every day after that failure in the early 80s and starting my career all over again and having to fight and scratch my way back into position to contend for any kind of wins, whether it was late model, short track, ASA, whatever, the Busch Series.
A leadoff single.
Winning was a big deal. Just winning races was a big deal, and so that's what really meant the most to me. And as we went forward, probably winning a championship for Jack, Ford, for our sponsors, and for my team guys had more meaning to me than winning, than the title itself for me personally.
With 5 Kendall locations in the area, getting an outstanding value when you buy a Kendall certified pre-owned vehicle is simple. Shop a great selection in a safe and clean environment and get as low as 0% financing for up to 60 months on select certified pre-owned vehicles. Get started at KendallAutoAlaska.com. Kendall. Let's start something great.
0% APR for 60 months on certified pre-owned Toyota models and non-approved credit with $1,669 per $1,000 borrowed. Subject to prior sales. See dealer for details. Offer valid 6/1/2020 to 6/30/2020.
Sears announces the Wasilla store is closing forever. Millions in inventory must be sold, including all fashion clothing, tools, bed and bath, housewares, sporting goods, and more. Save 70% off on all fine gold, silver, diamond, and gemstone jewelry. Gifts for all occasions. All in-store, in-stock major appliances are on sale. Everything must go. Even the store fixtures are for sale. Only in the Sears store in Wasilla at 1000 South Seward Meridian Road. It's business as usual at all other Sears stores.
So that year, 1991. Now, I don't, when fans look back at some of these years, some of these years just don't have a lot of highlights for you. And in fact, they really don't have a lot of lowlights. There's really just not a lot to talk about. Not a lot that stands out. This year, coming off of the heartbreak of that championship, and also you did have some poles, and you guys were fast, but there was mechanicals. And it was just a hard year, and there really isn't anything exciting or even really bad to talk about at that point, correct?
No, it is, we've gone through my career, and most of these years were monumental in my career. And when we get to 91, not so much. 92, not so much. 93, yes. Amazing stories, amazing stuff happened. And when we get to 94, 95, 96, not so much. 97 has some interest. 98 is another monumental year in my career. And then, probably 2005 and 6 have some important stories. And then 2009, and there's a little bit to talk about in 10 and 11. 2012 was a very special year to me. But there are, 91, 92, 94, 5, 6, not so much. It's not that much to talk about. And some of the years in the 2000s as well. I haven't started in this year, in 91, I haven't started getting really frustrated yet. And started letting, I haven't started losing the joy. It is real serious business and more serious than I should have took it. And less fun. I didn't let it be as much fun as I should have let it be. But I'm not grouchy yet at all. This is the beginning stages of things starting to wear on me, and they're in such an early stage that I kind of am blowing them off.
So that'll do it for episode number 34 of the Mark Martin Podcast. Again, you can hit the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Listen to the old episodes in the various years, and you can find it on various different podcast players. Make sure to give us that 5-star rating.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.
Look like the pitcher and catcher have a strategy in mind. So far, the batters are taking these pitches.
Out of the zone, that's a ball.
Look like the pitcher and catcher have a strategy in mind.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 33 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to get into the year 1992. But before we do that, make sure to head on over to the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Hit all of the links to listen to past episodes. You can also go and find the Mark Martin Podcast on your favorite player, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. But Mark, 1992, episode 33, it's a big year for you, the first year of Valvoline and also Busch Racing with Winn-Dixie.
He reaches with a single.
Yeah, it is. Like I had said before, that when Ralph Racing made the deal with Folgers, for some reason or other, Valvoline had a little fit. They found out that the car wasn't available, and they wanted it, so they were in line. They put their name in for, being first in line when Folgers stepped aside and came on as an associate with Folgers as a major in 90 and 91. In 92, the roles reversed. Folgers decided to take a step back, and Valvoline was chomping at the bits, wanting on board as the major sponsor. So that was the beginning of a terrific relationship and partnership. Fantastic. Also, Dan Davis, who was the head of Winn-Dixie Supermarkets, through Jack Roush, and Dan was interested in road racing, and so through Jack Roush and the 24 Hours of Daytona and all that stuff, I had met Dan, and we struck up a relationship and a deal to go Busch Series racing. And so I started my own team, a little Busch car, hired Sammy Houston, and I think Banjo Grimm actually came to work for me as well there in the beginning. And we started building a couple race cars, a couple of Busch cars, to run a dozen, 14 races, something like that. Cherry picked the events and all. So that was something that was really, really good for my career, because as you see in 91, after 90 and having a great season and nearly winning the championship, and 91 was a difficult season, disappointing to us at Roush Racing. We finally got our one and only win in the final race of the season at Atlanta. So